So Ijakumo is produced by Film One and Toyin Abraham Production. It runs for about 1 hour 57 minutes. It was directed by Adebayo Tijani and Steve Sodia, and it was shot in Nigeria, Abeokuta, and Lagos. Ijakumo is all about a corrupt pastor called Jide who is managed by a bad set of kakos called the Syndicate. Or can I say he is part of them? But there's a bit of controversy there because the film showed that he was managed by these kakus, right? He's not just a partner, these people are his god. That's what the film was saying, but I'll talk more about that later, right? Now, these syndicates are running all sorts of illegal businesses ranging from organ harvest to a lot of bad businesses. In another aspect, Jide was helped by Ashabi, his ex-girlfriend, whom he abandoned to die after causing her a miscarriage, right? Now, upon this pain of miscarriage, because the father had told Ashabi that she can only have one child, and so upon this pain of miscarriage that Jide had caused Ashabi in the past, Ashabi came back for vengeance on Jide, employing a stripper from Uganda called Sharon. Sharon has a twin sister called Mary, who is a chorister in Jide's church. This stripper was asked by Ashabi to get a thumb drive that has access to the savings of Jide and his syndicates. Performance of actors in this movie, Ijakumo, was good, even though some of the performances were like that of a stage drama, but it was a bit good. First of all, the performance of Kunle Reme in the character of Jide was good. He acted well in the character of that rook pastor who deceives his congregation in the name of God, right? Not only were his lines flawlessly passed, Kunle Reme brought in a believable fight scenes at the end there. Lolade Okosanya as Sharon and Mary was a good display, I can say, even though Lolade fits well into the character of Mary. However, I can't really say same for the character of Sharon because, I mean, if all strippers were like Sharon, I bet some men would stop going to the strippers club. Now, Toyin Abraham in the character of Ashabi, so both the character and the performance didn't communicate believability to me. I mean, that's to me, right? The character behaved mostly as though it was a stage drama. The pride that the character carries is not juxtaposed with the character development itself. I mean, there was no balance, right? Maybe it's because of the character arrogance without proper development that makes me feel that the character is not well performing, because I just saw pride without the source of riches. I don't see the source of riches and all of that. So maybe because of that, but I will talk more about character development later. Ashabi Younger, acted by Deborah Sokoya, had better performance in this movie than the older Ashabi, actually. That's what I can say. Her cries, I mean, the way she cries, it's more real, right? Her tears can, I mean, it throws one into that empathetic mood, right? For me, she had a good performance in this particular movie. Now, not forgetting young Jide, acted by Olumide Oworu, also had a good performance. Now, other actors like Bimbo Akintola, Segun Arinze, Said Funke Malam, and others actually did great, even though their characters were just a flash, right? But they actually did great. A flash, what I mean by a flash is that they just appeared once or twice. So Ijakumo had no special camera movement. It was just basically still shots that was mostly used in this particular movie. However, they had good camera angles that established good view. Now, lighting was good, even though there was this point at the gathering when the syndicates first called Jide to the meeting at the beginning of the movie. I mean, at that meeting, you could see the lighting equipment reflecting direct from Jide's eyeglass, right? And I saw that and I was like, oh, that's something they should have looked at. I mean, it should have been well pleased that it shouldn't reflect from his eyeglass, right? Makeup was also good. Special makeup was actually good. I looked at special makeup of Mary where Jide's voice beat her up mercilessly. I mean, that particular point, the special makeup was actually good. My observation in this movie is that the cinematography for this film was good, the locations were good actually, the setting was good, wardrobe was good, props were actually good, the lavish lifestyle and all were well represented. I actually have to mention that the church was actually filled up and that was good. I mean, it showed believability. However, the statement born again stripper attached to Ijakumo. If you listened well, I didn't talk about born again stripper from the beginning. I was just mentioning Ijakumo. That's because I didn't find the need to put in that born again stripper, because there's this disconnect of that statement that didn't happen. For me, I didn't see it there, because actually the stripper is not the born again and the born again is not the stripper. The stripper never went to church and the born again never went to the club. So why the born again stripper attached to Ijakumo? So I was just a bit deceived there, actually. I don't know whether you feel the way I feel. They were two different people. So there's no born again stripper in this movie. There was none. The film lacks some character development, like the case of Ashabi. How did she came to be rich and powerful? The only thing we were shown was the flashback. I mean, when the father told her she had all the powers inside her, and the father prayed for her, which was in a trance, I can say. So, how did Ashabi build her riches? I mean, this became something that I felt they should have shown us how she did that. Maybe that's why what is making me feel like her performance isn't great. Her performance doesn't just make sense. She was just carrying her big long hair from one point to another without proper justification of how she made her money. Yes, we saw in the part of Jide how his character was developed, which I'll talk about later. But in the character of Ashabi, there was no proper character development to show how Ashabi came to be who she is and what. Yeah, we know why she's hunting Jide, but how did she came to be who she is? How did she become so powerful? It's one thing that we were not shown, and that's the character development that I think was missing in Ashabi's character. Also, the show of how Olajide's house is opened, I mean, without securities, didn't represent the kind of luxury they displayed. Actually, there's this point where Sharon gets the thumb drive. I was hoping that they could show us more tactical ways of Sharon leaving that house, considering that Wale, that's Jide's brother, was in the house with her. But they just cut it off, and we never knew how Sharon got out of the house, and boom, Sharon arrives at where Ashabi was. So for me, I thought it's important that they would have spiced up things with showing us how Sharon tactically got out of that house, right? Also, for me, I see that the movie suffers from sound design issues, right? Like the inconsistent sound, that's the voice sound that was happening. If we listened closely, in some scenes, the voices sound differently in three different ways, right? You could hear some spaces, some places, the voice sounds more like the characters are speaking through a pipe or something like that. I can't really tell, but no, don't get me wrong. There are parts that were perfect. Actually, you could hear a good sound and a good background sound, right? And a good voice sound. But there are parts that they were just run out. Also, the lady who played the hacker role, I was just surprised to hear her say, "God bless America." I was like, who? In a Nigeria movie. It was just crazy for me. I mean, we have copied too much that we are leaving ourselves out of it, right? There was no any part of this movie that was acted in America, and there was no attribute or character that was representing in America. For what reason would God be blessing America in an Africa or Nigerian movie? It doesn't really make sense for me. So the movie depicted Nigeria, and so God bless Nigeria. For me, God bless Nigeria would have been what she should say. Ijakumo had good fight scenes. I'm not saying it's perfect actually, but it was actually good. Also, there seems to be a disconnect in the plot of the story, right? That is between the syndicate and Ashabi that directed Jide to get the crowd pulling charm, right? As a syndicate leader, Olanitemi's character had no development to be placed in that position to say she brought Jide to the limelight, or she brought Jide out of poverty, and that Jide should worship her as God, when the real person that we should be looking at is Ashabi. What we saw was that character development of Jide conversing for church members by the roundabout at the street with his brother. The only thing the syndicate did was to give him clothes and packaged him. Actually, that's what the syndicate did. So to me, that's just enough for a partnership, not a mastership actually. So this is the disconnect. How did the syndicate become Jide's God instead of a partner? That is one thing about the story I don't understand. And why should they be claiming credit for Jide's success? And at the same time, I shall be claiming credit for Jide's success. Don't get me wrong here. The story is just a bit complex that needs much development in the characters like Ashabi, Madam Olanitemi, the syndicate group, and Sharon, right? The only character developed was Jide, and even at that, we were surprised at the end of the movie when we saw the actions. So in as much as Jide's character was developed, we didn't see where he learned how to fight actually. For a pastor who is usually in church, showing us a bit of gym exercise would have prepared our minds towards the end, and when we see the action, we will not be surprised that this pastor doesn't know how to fight and now he's fighting. It's not everybody that you just say he didn't train and all of that and he's now fighting very well. It doesn't make sense. So give us a bit of a tip during the character development. Give us a tip of how this character learned how to fight and how he was fit for that particular role. We didn't see that, and all of a sudden, kusha, and Remy did very well. I mean, Jide did very well. So that development wasn't proper. So, in as much as they did the character development of how he became rich and how he became that church pastor, we needed to see also how he learned to become that fighter that was good. In conclusion, the movie Ijakumo tells a crazy story about vengeance by Ashabi on Jide as a result of pain and disappointment Jide caused her in the past, right? With several characters needing development, this film still retained a good cinematic picture with good performance from Kunle Remi, Lolade Okosanya, and a bunch of others. Guys, thank you very much for being with me to this end. And as usual, if you have not subscribed to my movie channel, please do that below. And as always, see you in my next movie review. Salute.